Hey there, creepy peeps, and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome back to my channel. If you aren't new here, hey, how's it going? Today we are going to do another creepy book club review of Summer of Night. Alright, so I talk about it every month, which already feels like too frequently. I don't know why I feel like you guys are always annoyed with me talking about this, because nobody has actually said they're annoyed with it. But I have a book club on Bookreads. It is called Creepy Book Club. It's always linked in the description if you want to check it out. And every month I do a book review, and it's always the book we have read for that month previous. So our June selection was Summer of Night by Dan Simmons, which is the first book in the seasonal, oh no, I've forgotten. Help me book, help me. Seasonal something, I forgot what the series is called. It's probably popping up on the screen. I only saw one other book in this series, and it's called A Winter Haunting. But yeah, so like I have been, I'm just gonna read the back of the book for you guys because I'm horrible at summarizing books for some reason. It's the summer of 1960, and in the small town of Elm Haven, Illinois, 5 12-year-old boys are forging the powerful bonds that a lifetime of change will not break. From sunset bike rides to shaded hiding places in the woods, the boys' days are marked by all of the secrets and silences of an idyllic childhood. But amid the sun-drenched cornfields, their loyalty will be pitilessly tested. When a long silent bell peals in the middle of the night, the townsfolk know it marks the end of their carefree days. From the depths of the old central school, a hulking fortress tinged with the mahogany scent of coffins, an invisible evil is rising. Strange and horrifying events begin to overtake everyday life, spreading terror through the once peaceful town. Determined to exorcise this ancient plague, Mike, Dwayne, Dale, Harlan, and Kevin must wage a war of blood against an arcane abomination who owns the night. Maybe, or maybe not, maybe that summary sounded a little bit familiar. I thought this book had a lot of similarities to Stephen King's It. So much so, not everything, but there were a couple of like really stark similarities to the point where like I stopped reading and I like picked up my phone to Google and see if like people were talking about this. I guess nobody is, and also Stephen King provided a superlative on the cover of this edition, so I guess the internet doesn't care, Stephen King doesn't care. Maybe it's not an issue, maybe it was just me picking that out, I don't know. Anyways though, I really liked the characters of the book, the bike patrol as they sometimes call themselves, which I thought that was really cute. I think kind of just like It also, there's a character for everybody to relate to. Like, I'm sure anybody reading this, you're going to see at least a little bit of yourself in at least one of the characters, if not a couple of them. So that's really good for when things start getting crazy, because you know, you want to feel for the characters and you want to feel scared for them, and this book does that really well. I did want to talk about one scene with the characters though that I didn't like, and I'm normally not this prudish, but there is one scene in particular, a more sexual scene, which I found weird mostly because the characters are 11 and 12 years old, and so when you're that age, you're just entering puberty, and I don't know why. I'm just gonna call Dan Simmons out here, which is probably a bad idea, but he's not the only one that's done this, but I don't know why puberty in media, books, TVs, movies, is like this like switch that's like, not every storyteller, but a lot of storytellers assume it's like this, like they write about it like it's the switch, like as soon as you enter puberty you all of a sudden know everything about everything, which could not be farther from the truth, unless I'm all on my own here and everybody else instantly knew about everything as soon as they hit puberty. But, and granted, I also did not grow up in the 60s, so I don't know how different it was, whatever, but no 11 and 12-year-olds that I knew acted this way, and I just found it a bit weird. And I'm not saying Dan Simmons is a pervert or anything, just disclaimer, but it's like a scene between one of our main characters, Mike, and a minor character, Michelle, and they're 11 and 12 respectively, and there's this little scene that goes on between them, and it feels like a romantic scene. The way it's like described and the word usage feels like it's written by an adult, and it is, but the fact that it was like between two kids that were so young made me a little bit uncomfortable. Nothing really happens. I'm just like actually really nothing happens, but I don't know, it just made me feel a bit weird and I did not like it. I just had to point that out again in case maybe somebody else out there felt the same, and then I won't feel so alone. I am not, again, disclaimer, for legal reasons, I'm not calling Dan Simmons out on this. Anyways, though, back to the plot. It does take a while for things to get started in the book, and it is quite a big book. It's about 500 pages, this copy is. But the build-up is really good. I'm not saying that it's boring by any means. Stuff is still happening, but the build-up is awesome, and the payoff is also really awesome. And it's also kind of insidious the way this book is almost. It's like the scary scenes kind of just like weasel their way into your brain. So like when I was like sat there reading this, mostly during the day is when I get a lot of my reading done. I'm just reading it and I'm like, you know, this isn't all that scary. I've read scarier scenes, seen scarier scenes in movies. This is nothing. But then later that night, I'd be trying to go to sleep and then my brain would just kind of like ignite and be like, hey, remember that scary thing you read earlier today? And listen, there's a scary sound coming from somewhere else in the house. But it's very insidious in the way it does that. Like it just kind of sneakily creeps in there and then all of a sudden you're terrified of the dark at 27 years old. And of course, again, much like it and a lot of other horror stories, books, movies that take place with kids these age. Obviously, yes, it's about these kids battling, without spoiling anything, monsters. I'm just gonna refer to them as monsters. It's obviously about them battling these scary supernatural things, but it's also about them navigating through all of this with little or no adult supervision. While all of these scary things are happening, of course, this is taking place over the summer, so the kids are out running around. So the parents are either absent, they are unbelieving, or they're part of the problem. I just wanted to point out something that I found a little bit interesting. I feel like I'm calling Dan Simmons out again. Like, I'm not trying to like start anything, but this book has an introduction from Dan Simmons where he writes quite a lot. He addresses a couple things about the book, and one I found interesting, I'm in the front in the introduction, he's talking about basically the theme of the book. So he writes, and I quote, "Summer of Night, while on the surface a horror novel, is actually a celebration of the secrets and silences of childhood. But it's also a tale of a separate world of childhood that we've lost or may be on the verge of losing." This book was published in 1991. So he kind of goes on, his first little section here is about how different kids growing up, I guess in the 90s, were, or I guess maybe in the 80s too, leading up to when he published this book, versus in 1960 when this is set, and I assume when Dan Simmons grew up. I don't know when he was born. So he's talking about how kids today, again, when this was written, have less freedom than the kids in the 1960s when this novel was set. So he writes, to me, online communities are just more texts, more blob of electronic ink on a glass page, just one more glass teat that the kids and grown-ups of our era can stay home and suck on rather than emerge into the light and engage with the real world. Later on down the page, he writes, in the morning, the parents didn't ask where the kids were heading and the kids didn't tell. It was a good policy. I was allowed to run around my neighborhood without supervision, really. So I think this more applies to like definitely kids today, like growing up right now. I feel like definitely have less freedoms, and definitely kids in larger cities, I think, probably suffer from less freedoms as well. And by freedoms, I mean just being allowed to be a kid and run around and not, not have your parents watching you every second. I just thought it was a bit weird that he wrote at length about that topic in the introduction, when a lot of the scary scenes that happen in this book happen a lot in part to parental negligence. So I'm gonna spoil one thing here, I am sorry, so cover your ears for 2 seconds. Just to give an example, one of those scenes is Dwayne's death. It happens while his dad is out drinking and he's home by himself. And then when Harlan encounters the ghoul in his room, again, his mom is out on the town with some guy and Harlan is left by himself. I know I'm talking a lot about this. I just thought it was a little, maybe a little like teetering on the edge of hypocritical to talk about that when a lot of the scary stuff happen because the kids are running around and not, you know, it's like, they're not like, yes, they're experiencing freedom, but they also experience a lot of really scary shit and there are no parents around. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Anyways. I guess I might as well wrap this up. Overall, I thought the book was good. Like, it really was. Any perceived hypocrisy on my end, perceived anyway, aside, I give it a 4 out of 5 personally on Goodreads. It has a 4.02 out of 5. On barnesandnoble.com it has a 4.4 out of 5, and on Amazon it has a 4.3 out of 5. So if you've read Summer of Night, let me know in the comment section down below what you thought about it. I thought I would take this time too to tell you what we're gonna read for the rest of the year because we've already decided. So I'll just go over that really quick with you guys. So our very next book, our book for July, is called Escape by Ian Rob Wright, sorry. And it sounds like it's about pretty much what the title is. It's about a company outing to an escape room that goes sinister. So we'll kind of see how that stacks up against Escape Room, a movie that came out earlier this year. But it sounded cool, so that's what we're gonna read for July. It's the very next book. After that, in August, we are going to read Broken Monsters by Lauren Bukes. Probably said that wrong. You'll notice too, I feel like there's a little bit more anyway, diversity with the authors. I really wanted to diversify the horror authors we were reading from because yeah, like that I'm thinking about it now, all the books we've read previously, I think we only had one person of color and he was male also, so I really wanted to get some female authors. And oh, I'm sorry, no, we did have one other female author, but that was it out of a year of reading. So I wanted to mix it up a little bit, so I tried very hard to find some books that were diversified from different voices, basically. This one seems cool. It's, again, I don't know what these are about, obviously, because I haven't read them yet, but it's like kind of like maybe thriller, detective, murder solving sort of thing, at least from what I've read in the summary. The next one is probably the book I'm most excited about. It is We Sold Our Souls by Grady Hendrix. I've reviewed My Best Friend's Exorcism, also by Grady Hendrix, on here, so I'll link that up on the screen somewhere if you want to check that out. Highly recommend that book. Highly recommend his other book, Horror Store. And I'm very excited about this. very excited about this one. That's for September, sorry, I don't know if I said. And then for October, we have one that I feel like a lot of you guys are really gonna like, so I don't know, maybe if you guys want to read along with us for October. It's called The Last Final Girl by Stephen Graham Jones. Sorry, I want to get his name right. Just to give you an example, I'm gonna read the little blurb about the book here on the top. It says, "You screamed with Scream. You dressed up for Halloween. You went camping on Friday the 13th and you stayed awake for A Nightmare on Elm Street. Now shimmy into that skirt, pick up whatever blade's handy. It's time for The Last Final Girl." And then at the bottom here, it has the quote from Billy from Scream, movies don't create psychos, movies make psychos more creative. So this one seems very like horror fan friendly, like very much horror fan. Another one of the superlatives on the back say the last final girl is like Quentin Tarantino's take on The Cabin in the Woods, bloody, absurd, and smart. Plus there's a killer in a Michael Jackson mask. So I don't know, like, I don't know, maybe if you guys want to read along for us for October, like more of you want to for October, this sounds like it's gonna be a lot of fun. And then for November, we have Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler, which is supposed to be a vampire book, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, vampires. So I love me a good vampire novel, so I'm really excited to read this one. And then finally for December, we have Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant, which is a pseudonym. It's a pseudonym for author Shannon McGuire. I'm probably saying her name wrong, but that's basically how I have actually had this one on my shelf for a little bit because a coworker recommended it to me, and basically she just described it as like evil mermaids. So I'm really excited for this. I thought The Lure, that movie I reviewed a little while ago, was really good, so I'm really excited to read something scary that has to do with mermaids. This video is probably long enough. That's what we're gonna read for the rest of the year. So hopefully maybe more of you guys want to join us, and yeah. Let me know if anybody has read any of those in the comment section down below, and without spoiling anything, please let me know what you thought about it. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here. Become a Creepy Peep today. I post videos Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can ring that notification bell down there to be notified every time I post a video, even though it doesn't always work. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay strange. Bye.
This video is brought to you by all these lovely creepy patron peeps that you see listed on the left-hand side of the screen. If you want to find out the perks to being a creepy patron peep, you can follow that link that is in the description of this video. No pressure, but it's there if you want to check it out. Thanks for watching. Bye!